My in-laws humiliated me at their anniversary celebration. They excluded me from their family trip and expected me to babysit instead. So I left everything behind to build a new life and discovered my true passion. I stood in the kitchen, aprons smeared with grease, flipping burgers on the grill while the house buzzed around me. My in-laws' 40th anniversary party was in full swing. 40 years of Richard and Margaret celebrated with a backyard packed full of family. My hands moved fast, keeping the food coming, while my husband's siblings, Connor, Audrey, and Landon, lounged at the picnic table, laughing with their spouses and letting their kids run wild. I'd been at it since morning, setting up chairs, stringing lights, chasing after my nieces and nephews who thought the cake was a punching bag. At 34, I was the one who made things work, always had been. The reliable daughter-in-law who stepped in whenever needed, who rearranged her schedule at a moment's notice to help with family emergencies that somehow always fell on my shoulders. The noise hit a peak when Richard clinked his beer bottle with a fork, standing up like some king about to decree something. Margaret leaned against him, her grin wide, and the crowd hushed. "We've got an announcement," he said, voice gravelly from years of barking orders. "Next week, we're taking the whole family to Hawaii. Another party, but with sand and sun." Cheers erupted. Connor hooted, Audrey clapped, and the kids shrieked about surfing. I felt a jolt of excitement, too. Hawaii sounded like a dream, a break from the grind. I flipped the last burger, wiped my hands, and stepped closer. "Well, what time's the departure?" I asked casually, figuring I'd need to shuffle some work shifts. Richard turned, his gray eyes narrowing like I'd asked something stupid. "You don't need to know," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're not part of us. Stay here and watch the kids." Margaret snorted, a sharp little laugh, and waved her hand like it was nothing. My stomach dropped. The table went quiet for a beat, then Connor muttered something about flights, and the chatter picked back up. No one looked at me. No one cared. I stood there, spatula still in hand, heat creeping up my neck. After all I'd done, years of fixing their messes, working extra shifts to help with bills when Richard got laid off, babysitting so my husband's siblings could live their lives, they didn't even see me as family. I glanced at my husband, Mason, expecting him to say something, to defend me. But he just sat there, staring at his plate, shoulders hunched. He'd always been this way, caught between his family's demands and my feelings, always choosing the path of least resistance. Which meant I was always the one who bent. I tossed the spatula onto the grill, grabbed my jacket from the porch, and walked out. Audrey called after me, "Grace, you okay?" But I didn't stop. The screen door slammed behind me, and I was gone, boots crunching gravel to my car. I drove to our apartment, a cramped one-bedroom littered with reminders of them, tools from helping Richard rebuild the garage, a toy car one of Landon's boys left behind. I sank onto the couch, staring at the wall. 34 years old, and I'd given up everything. My career advancement, travel dreams, a life of my own. For them. For Mason and his family. And I got that in return? A nobody. A babysitter. The anger boiled up, hot and fast, but underneath it was something else. Tiredness. Bone deep. I couldn't do it anymore. I thought of Hawaii, the beaches I'd never see, and then of a place I'd always wanted to go, a coastal city a few hours away, all docks and waves and freedom. I'd driven through once, years back, and it stuck with me. No one needed me there. No one knew me. That was the point. When Mason came home hours later, he found me sitting in the dark. "What happened back there?" he asked, flipping on the light. "Mom said you just took off." "Do you really need to ask?" My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. "Your father humiliated me in front of everyone, and you said nothing." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Dad didn't mean it like that. You know how he is." "Yes, I do know how he is, and how you all are." I stood up. 7 years, Mason. 7 years I've been part of this family, and your parents still treat me like the help. "That's not fair," he protested weakly. "Isn't it? When was the last time anyone asked what I wanted? When was the last time you stood up for me?" He had no answer, just that same helpless look he always wore when caught between me and his family. "They're going to Hawaii," I said, "and they made it very clear I'm not welcome. Just good enough to watch the kids while everyone else has fun." "I'll talk to them," he offered, but we both knew he wouldn't. Not really. "Don't bother." I walked to the bedroom, my mind already made up. I wouldn't be here when they left for their trip. I wouldn't be here at all. I didn't sleep. I pulled a duffel bag from the closet and started packing. Jeans, a few shirts, my old boots. No plan, just motion. I grabbed my savings, a thin stack of cash from overtime shifts, and checked the bus schedule on my phone. There was one leaving at 5:00 a.m., before the sun even thought about rising. I hesitated, thumb hovering over Zoe's number. She was 16, Margaret and Richard's youngest granddaughter, the only one who ever seemed to get me. But I didn't call. She'd try to talk me out of it, and I couldn't afford that. Not now. The clock ticked past 3:00 a.m. Mason was asleep on the couch, having retreated there after our argument. I'd spent 7 years trying to fit into his family, bending myself into shapes that were never enough. 7 years of just ignore it and that's just how they are, and don't make waves. I was done making myself smaller. I scribbled a note, just 3 words. I need time. Then I slung the bag over my shoulder, locked the door behind me, and walked to the station. The air was cool, the streets empty, and my chest felt tight, like I was betraying something, but I kept moving. The bus pulled up, a hulking gray thing, and I handed over my ticket. The driver didn't ask questions. I took a seat near the back by the window and watched my town shrink away as we rolled out. Gas station, hardware store, the neighborhood where Mason had grown up, all fading into the dark. I leaned my head against the glass, jaw clenched. They'd figure out I was gone eventually, when they needed someone to wipe noses or pack lunches. Richard's words echoed, "You're not part of us." Fine. If I wasn't part of them, I'd be part of something else. Something mine. The bus rumbled on, carrying me toward a city I barely knew, and for the first time in years, I felt awake. Scared, yeah, but awake. I didn't look back. The bus jolted to a stop just as the sun peeked over the horizon, and I stepped off into the coastal city. My boots hit the pavement, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, and I stood there squinting at the sprawl of it, docks stretching out to the water, cranes looming like giants, horns blaring from boats I couldn't see. It was loud, alive, nothing like the quiet trap I'd left behind. I had no idea where to start, but that was the point. No one here knew me as the woman who fixed everything, who always said yes, who swallowed her dreams to make room for everyone else's. I was just Grace, and I'd figure it out. I found a room to rent that first day, a shoebox above a bar that shook with bass every night. The landlord, a guy with a beard like steel wool, didn't care about references, just took my cash and handed me a key. It wasn't much, a mattress, a sink, a window with a view of rusted fire escapes, but it was mine. I dropped my bag, sat on the bed, and let the weight of what I'd done sink in. I'd walked away. No goodbye, no real explanation. Mason would be waking up soon, probably still clueless, and I wondered how long it would take him to notice I wasn't coming back. How long before his family realized their convenient helper was gone? My phone had been buzzing with texts since dawn. Mason mostly confused at first, then worried, then angry. A couple from Audrey asking what was going on. Nothing from Richard or Margaret, of course. I turned it off. Next morning, I hit the streets looking for work. My savings wouldn't last, and I wasn't about to crawl back home. I landed a gig at a cafe near the docks, some hole-in-the-wall joint packed with fishermen and delivery guys. The manager tossed me an apron and told me to keep up. I'd never poured coffee for a living, and my first shift was a mess. Spilled trays, wrong orders, curses from the counter. But I gritted through it. No one yelled at me for forgetting to pick up dry cleaning or missing a family dinner. It was hard, but it was clean. My mess, not theirs. 3 weeks into my new life, I'd settled into a rhythm. Wake up at 5 a.m., work the morning shift at Harborside Cafe, collapse into bed, repeat. My hands were raw from hot water and dish soap, but the tips were decent, and the regulars had started to recognize me. Some even knew my name. One afternoon, during a rare lull, a woman about my age slid onto a stool at the counter. She had wild curls dyed purple at the tips and more piercings than I could count. She ordered a black coffee and watched me pour it with curious eyes. "You're new around here," she said. Not a question. I nodded, wiping down the counter. "That obvious?" "This town doesn't get many newcomers who stay." She extended a tattooed hand. "I'm Lily. I run the art gallery down the street." "Grace?" I said, shaking her hand. "And I'm staying." She grinned, something knowing in her eyes. Running from something or toward something? Both, I guess. Lily became my first friend in the city. She'd stop by the cafe most afternoons, telling me stories about the local artists or the tourists who wandered into her gallery thinking it was a gift shop. She never pushed about my past, and I appreciated that. One day she mentioned needing someone to help with weekend shifts at the gallery. "The pay's not great," she admitted, "but it's quiet, and you get to look at pretty things all day." I took the job. Between the cafe mornings and gallery weekends, I was exhausted but fulfilled in a way I hadn't felt in years. I was building something that was mine. My tiny room slowly became home. I hung string lights across the ceiling and found a second-hand bookshelf at a yard sale. I started collecting postcards of the city, the lighthouse, the harbor at sunset, the old clock tower downtown. Little pieces of a place I was choosing to belong to. Then one rainy Tuesday, I wandered into a pawn shop, killing time before my shift. The place was crammed with other people's discarded treasures: guitars, watches, jewelry nobody wanted anymore. In the back corner, I spotted an old camera. Not digital, but the kind that used actual film. I picked it up, feeling its weight, the solid mechanical click when I pressed the shutter. "That's a Nikon FM2, the shopkeeper said, materializing beside me. "Manual everything, built like a tank." "Does it work?" I asked, turning it over in my hands. "Sure does. Previous owner took good care of it." He named a price that would eat into my savings, but something about the camera called to me. I bought it, along with 2 rolls of film. I knew nothing about photography, but Lily did. She showed me the basics: aperture, shutter speed, how to load the film without exposing it. My first roll was terrible: blurry shots, bad lighting, half the frames overexposed. But there was one, a seagull caught mid-flight against the setting sun, that made me catch my breath when I saw it. "Not bad," Lily said, examining the print. "You've got an eye." I started carrying the camera everywhere, shooting between shifts, capturing the city as I discovered it. The fishermen hauling in their catch at dawn. The old man who played saxophone on the pier. The way fog rolled in from the ocean, swallowing the tops of buildings. Photography became my language, the way I processed this new world I'd stepped into. Through the viewfinder, I could frame exactly what I wanted to see, control what stayed in focus and what blurred away. It was the opposite of my old life, where I'd never had any control at all. 6 weeks after I left, my phone rang with a number I recognized. Sophie, Mason's younger sister. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Grace? Oh, thank God. Where are you?" Her voice was breathless, worried. "I'm safe," I said, not offering more. "Everyone's freaking out. Mason's a mess. Mom and Dad had to cancel Hawaii because there was no one to watch the kids," I finished for her. A pause. "Well, yeah, but that's not—" "I'm not coming back, Sophie. But I'm building something here. Something for me." She sighed, and I could picture her running a hand through her hair the way she did when frustrated. "Mason says you just left a note. 3 words. That's it, after 7 years? Guilt tugged at me, but I pushed it away. How many times did your parents make it clear I wasn't really family? How many times did Mason stand by and let them? They didn't mean... They did. My voice was firm, and I finally believed them. After we hung up, I grabbed my camera and headed to the pier. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and crimson. I framed the shot, adjusted the focus, and pressed the shutter. Click. A moment captured, preserved. Mine to keep. That night, I developed the photo in Lily's makeshift darkroom. Watching the image appear in the chemical bath felt like magic. Something from nothing, a new reality emerging. Just like me. 3 months into my new life, I was working the morning shift when the bell above the cafe door jingled. I looked up from the espresso machine, and my stomach dropped. Mason stood in the doorway, looking lost and out of place among the fishermen and dock workers. He spotted me immediately, his eyes widening. I'd cut my hair short, dyed the ends blue at Lily's insistence. I looked different. I felt different. "Grace," he said, approaching the counter slowly like I might bolt. "I finally found you." I kept my hands steady as I finished the latte I was making. "How?" "Sophie tracked your phone before you turned it off. Narrowed it down to this city." He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes. "I've been searching for 2 days, checking every cafe and restaurant." I handed the latte to a waiting customer, then turned to face him. "Why are you here, Mason?" "To bring you home." He reached for my hand across the counter, but I pulled back. "Everyone misses you. I miss you." "I'm not coming back." His face fell. "You can't just throw away 7 years of marriage. We can work this out." "Can we?" I untied my apron. "Javier, I'm taking my break," I called to my manager, who nodded. I led Mason outside to the small patio area. The morning was crisp, the harbor busy with boats heading out for the day. We sat at a metal table, the salt air between us. "You just left," he said, voice cracking. "No real explanation, no chance to fix things." "I gave you 7 years of chances." I folded my arms. 7 years of being treated like I didn't matter, of you never standing up for me. That's not fair. My parents are difficult, but what? I was supposed to just keep taking it? Keep being the family doormat? The anger I'd been holding back surged. Your father humiliated me in front of everyone and you said nothing. Mason looked down. "I should have defended you. I know that now." "Now? After I had to leave for you to see it?" I shook my head. "That's the problem, Mason. I had to disappear to be noticed." "We can start over," he pleaded. "I'll set boundaries with my parents. I'll be better." I almost wavered then, seeing the pain in his eyes. But I thought of my tiny room above the bar, my camera, the gallery, Lily, the life I was building, brick by brick. "I have something here," I said softly. "Something that's mine. For the first time, I'm not just someone's wife or daughter-in-law or the person who fixes everything. What about us? Don't I get a say in this?" "You had 7 years of say." My voice was steady. "This is my turn." We sat in silence, the gulf between us widening. Finally, Mason reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "Your niece asked me to give you this if I found you. Zoe. She's been devastated since you left." I took the envelope, guilt twisting in my chest. Zoe, the one person in his family I truly connected with. I opened it to find a photo, Zoe and me from last Christmas, laughing as we decorated cookies. On the back, she'd written, "I miss you. They're all idiots, but I'm not. Please come back." My eyes burned. "I'll call her," I managed. "And what about me?" Mason asked, his voice small. "What am I supposed to do?" "Live your life. Figure out who you are without me fixing everything." "I don't want a life without you in it." I looked at him then, really looked. The man I'd married, who I'd loved enough to give up pieces of myself for. But love shouldn't require that kind of sacrifice. "I'm sorry, Mason. I can't go back." He stayed for hours, alternating between pleading and anger. He brought up memories, promised changes, even threatened to move to the city himself. But something had shifted in me, hardened like amber. I couldn't be who I was before. As the sun began to set, we stood on the pier, the conversation exhausted. "So this is it?" he asked, defeat in every line of his body. "This is it," I confirmed. "My parents were wrong about you, you know. You were always part of the family, the best part." I smiled sadly. "Tell them I said goodbye." After he left, I walked the length of the harbor, my camera around my neck. I took photos of the water, the boats, the sky bleeding from orange to purple. I thought about Zoe, about the guilt of leaving without saying goodbye. I'd call her tomorrow, I decided. Explain as best I could. When I returned to my room, I found Mason had left something on my doorstep, a small box with a note. "These belong with you." Inside were photos from our life together, my grandmother's earrings I'd left behind, and the shell we'd found on our honeymoon, pieces of a past I'd walked away from. I sat on my bed, looking at these fragments of my old life, and felt a strange peace. I hadn't known who I was apart from everyone else's needs. Now I was learning. That night, I developed a new roll of film, shots of the city, of Lily laughing in her gallery, of the old fisherman who gave me coffee tips, and one of Mason, taken that day on the pier, looking out at the water. His back was to the camera, shoulders slumped, a man I once knew completely, but now seemed like a stranger. I pinned the photos to my wall, a visual diary of before and after. Then I called Zoe, ready to explain that sometimes walking away isn't abandonment. It's the only way to find yourself. 6 months after leaving, I was developing photos in Lily's darkroom when she burst in, waving a flyer. "You need to see this," she said, flipping on the overhead light and ruining the print I was working on. "Lily, I was in the middle of—" "Trust me, this is more important." She thrust the paper into my hands. "The city's hosting a photography exhibition. New perspectives. Open submissions. You have to enter." I scanned the flyer. "This is for real photographers, professionals. And what do you think you've been doing for the last 6 months?" She gestured to the clothesline of prints drying above us, fishermen hauling nets at dawn, children racing along the pier, the lighthouse shrouded in fog. "Taking pictures. As a hobby." Lily rolled her eyes. "A hobby that's taken over your apartment and all your free time. A hobby you're actually good at." I hesitated. The idea of putting my work out there, of people judging it, judging me, made my stomach clench. But something else fluttered beneath the fear. Possibility. "The deadline's next week," I said, reading the fine print. "So you'll do it?" I took a deep breath. "I'll think about it." That night, I spread my photos across my apartment floor, hundreds of moments I'd captured since arriving in the city. Looking at them together, I could see a story emerging, not just of the harbor and its people, but of my own transformation. The early shots were tentative, technically flawed but earnest. The recent ones showed confidence, a distinct perspective. I selected 10 images that felt most true and wrote a brief artist statement about seeing a place with new eyes. 3 weeks later, I received an email. My series had been accepted. The exhibition opening was held at the Municipal Gallery downtown, a converted warehouse with exposed brick and soaring ceilings. My photos hung in a corner, modestly lit but visible. I stood nearby, wearing a dress Lily had insisted I buy, feeling like an imposter. "These are remarkable," said a woman with silver hair and statement jewelry, studying my harbor series. "The way you've captured the light on the water. There's such longing in these images." "Thank you," I managed, surprised by her assessment. "Are you local?" she asked. "I am now," I replied, the words feeling true as I spoke them. Throughout the evening, people stopped to look at my work. Some just glanced and moved on, but others lingered, asked questions. A man in a tweed jacket handed me his card. He owned a small gallery across town and wanted to talk about a solo show. "Your perspective is fresh," he said. "These aren't tourist snapshots. They feel like love letters to the city." By the end of the night, I was dizzy with possibility. Lily hugged me, spilling champagne on both our dresses. "I told you," she whispered. "You're not just hiding here anymore. You're building something." The next morning, still riding the high of the exhibition, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Grace Harmon?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Elena Vasquez. I'm the arts editor at the Harbor Chronicle. I saw your exhibition last night." My heart raced. "Oh?" "We're doing a feature on emerging local artists, and your work caught my attention. The way you capture our community, it's something special." We arranged to meet for coffee the following day. Elena was younger than I expected, with bright red lipstick and a notebook full of questions. She wanted to know my background, my inspiration, my process. "I'm actually new to photography," I admitted. "I only started when I moved here 8 months ago." "What brought you to the city?" she asked. I hesitated, then decided on honesty. "I left my old life. Needed to find out who I was without everyone else's expectations." Elena nodded, scribbling in her notebook. "And what did you find?" "That I had things to say, that I could see beauty others might miss." I smiled. "That I wasn't done becoming myself." The article ran the following Sunday, a full-page spread with 3 of my photos. "Harbor's Newest Eye, Grace Harmon Captures City's Soul," the headline read. Elena had written beautifully about my journey, framing it as a story of reinvention. That afternoon, my phone rang again. Zoe. "I saw you in the paper," she exclaimed. "Mom and Dad get the Sunday edition of your city's newspaper now to check if there's any news about you. You're famous." I laughed. "Hardly famous, just a small feature." "The photos are amazing, Grace. I always knew you were creative, but wow." We talked for an hour, about her college applications, about my new life, about the family. She was the only one I stayed in regular contact with. Our weekly calls a bridge to my past that didn't feel heavy to cross. "They miss you," she said softly before we hung up. "Even Grandpa Richard, though he'd never admit it." "I miss parts of all of you too," I replied. "But I needed this." "I know," she said, "and I'm proud of you." That night, I walked to the harbor with my camera, watching the sunset paint the water gold. I framed a shot of a sailboat returning to port, adjusted the focus, and felt the familiar click of the shutter. Another moment preserved. Another piece of the life I was building, one frame at a time.